Tom, we go back to Skype where we've got the pizza guy on the line in North Dakota. Pizza guy, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, I was listening to an episode the other day where you were talking with Johnny Ray about voting.
Yes.
And I was wondering if we could maybe recap that and talk about your position on voting.
All right, sure. Well, I don't know what Ellen and I can probably guess Daryl's position on this. I don't know what Ellen's position is going to be, but to recap, Johnny Ray, our Tuesday night co-host, is vehemently against voting. He believes it is a waste of time, and even that it's possibly morally wrong to participate in it. I don't like putting words in his mouth because he's not here to actually defend his position, but suffice it to say, he does not participate inside the system and does not believe that other people should. My position is that I'll do anything I can that will increase freedom in this world, in this place that I inhabit, and if I can vote for a liberty-oriented candidate, somebody who I don't feel dirty about casting a vote for, somebody who actually espouses the ideas of freedom and understands the non-aggression principle, and that in order to be free you have to allow others to be free. If there's a candidate out there who really seems to get the ideas of freedom, I don't have any problem with voting for him. And I'm curious, Ellen, what about you? How do you feel about voting?
Well, I feel pretty similarly to you. I don't think that it's right to complain about government bureaucrats and people who are in power if you don't try as much as you can or do anything within your power to help change that. So I think that there's nothing morally wrong with voting. Like, yes, it's very unfortunate that there's this system created where we have these rulers that we're voting for, and sometimes it seems like it doesn't really matter what you choose, but I still feel like it's the principle of the thing. Like, if I can do something to increase my freedom and everyone else's, then yes, I will do anything that even remotely has the possibility of playing out that way.
I wish that my vote for none of the above was actually a binding vote, and that if a plurality of people voted for none of the above, that the office would be vacant.
Well, don't they have that in Nevada? Where
to some extent, it is not binding.
But it's actually on the ballot.
It's on the ballot
here.
by law.
Right.
But it's not binding, meaning that in the rare instance where none of the above actually winds up winning the election,
the second place will get it?
Then the human candidate that had the most votes will then get elected.
What's the point?
The human candidate?
Well, none of the above is not a human.
Well, it could be if you change your name.
It's not even a candidate. There is no candidate.
Well, no, the candidate is nobody. And that is on the ballot in Nevada.
And it should be.
Yes.
It should be on the ballot everywhere so people have the opportunity to voice their displeasure with the main two options, which is usually all they get.
Well, one of our supposed representatives here in Keene last year actually put forth a bill to the State House to put none of the above on the ballot.
Oh, wow.
And
did it even make it out of committee?
Well, everything comes out of committee. It came out of committee as inexpedient to legislate because the people on the committee didn't understand what would happen.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Even though the bill specified what would happen, they were confused.
Yeah, they probably didn't read it.
No, they read it, but
really?
They were confused. Well, wait a second. So if none of the above winds up winning and it's something to where you elect 4 people, then nobody takes office, then how does that work?
How are they going to conceptualize not having their jobs? Or not anybody having their jobs, for that matter.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting. I mean, do you know, Daryl, since the Nevada has had it put into effect, how does none of the above do at the ballot? I mean, what are the results?
There was an election, I think it was one of the primary elections earlier this year, where none of the above not only won, but had a majority of the vote.
And how new is this out there?
It's been on, I'm thinking, since the late 90s.
So this is not new then. Okay.
It's not new.
But
it's been on for a while.
How does it normally do? You don't live there, so you probably don't really know. But
actually, I keep a close look on election results across the country.
I feel like
and
you might know.
In a lot of races, it winds up getting 2-3%.
That's all. And you'd think none of the above would do better than that.
Well, maybe
Well-
people don't realize that if they vote none of the above, then that will actually be taken into account.
Or maybe they don't, or maybe they know that it won't count because it's not. Like even if it wins, it doesn't win.
There's still a lot of people that don't vote at all, so some people could say that everybody that doesn't vote is
Would be
voting for none of the above.
Good point. So go ahead. I mean, we've just come to rambling here. Your thoughts, Pizza Guy?
Well, I was being patient.
Oh, hang on a second. I gotta turn you up there because you were counting money or something in the background.
Oh, yeah, no, I dropped a screw.
Okay.
Anyway,
Go
I
ahead.
was patient. Yes, no. So that was 2 in favor of voting and 1 maybe a voter. I don't know. But so what
I think all 3 of us are in favor of it.
in favor of voting? And by what principle?
Just because I vote doesn't mean that I'm in favor of voting.
Wait a minute. How can you do something you're not in favor of?
I would love to see a system in which, unless a majority of people go to the polls, that everything is invalid.
Okay, that'd be great, Daryl. But the point is, you're going to vote. You must be in favor of it on some level.
Well, ideally, he would like to not vote, but I guess voting
Okay.
is more
Ideally,
favorable
I
right
would
now.
love to live in a society where voting
Great.
doesn't happen.
For now, though, you're in favor
But,
of it, given the fact
you know,
that you do
It's
it.
more favorable than not voting currently.
Right.
But, and so I think we're getting exactly where I wanted to go. I'm kind of leading you down a path here. So by what principle do you vote? What's the principle? It's the principle of pragmatism, right? And how do you define the pragmatic action?
I would call it a principle of harm reduction, personally.
I don't think that voting for none of the above is very pragmatic. I vote to express my dissent with
Yeah.
the system.
Well, I do it for harm reduction purposes. Not that the candidates I vote for win, but should they actually win, there's a greater chance that those candidates will do something to try to make the government smaller, to try to stop the violence against peaceful people. And I'd like to see that happen someday. So if voting for someone who promises those things could possibly bring it about, then it's worth the effort to me. And I see that here in New Hampshire, we actually do have liberty-minded people getting elected as both Democrats and Republicans here. And, I think that's great. So
And so
more
I've
power to
called
them.
many times before.
Well, wait a minute. Let's let Ellen answer the question. What about the principle? Is there a principle behind voting for you?
I think voting is the principle, really. Like, I've not registered myself, so I haven't voted yet.
Tisk.
I'm in favor of it, and I want to get around to doing it, but
The good news about New
it's
Hampshire,
finding
Ellen,
time.
is that
Yeah.
you can actually show up. You don't have to find time to register in New Hampshire. Unlike
really?
most states, New Hampshire actually allows you to just walk in the day of the election. So you can just waltz on in and sign up to vote right there and then.
That'd be so easy if I'd known that.
Yep, there you go. Now you know. And now
Okay.
everybody listening knows. It's really handy.
Well, I mean, like I said though, I support. I'm in favor of voting just because I think that it is much more beneficial than just not giving your opinion at all, because then you're going to be overshadowed by everybody else who is.
Well, the thing about voting is it's not actually opinion, right? Because you're just registering a vote for somebody. Nobody really knows why you voted for that person. They don't know if you voted for the person because you agree with everything they say, or because you agree that or you only agree with them more than you agree with the other candidate, or you were voting for them because of the lesser of two evils.
Right, but to some extent that is expressing an opinion, because
It's poor communication, though.
it is. I mean, it must be very vague if there's only a few candidates, but still, it's expressing you're in favor of something that they support.
All
And
right.
if only one person shows up to the poll, then that one person decides everything.
Pizza Guy, hang on. I know you said you were going somewhere with this, so we're going to bring you back here if you don't mind. And you were asking us about voting, and generally the response from the host on the show, at least tonight, was positive. If it were Tuesday night, Johnny Ray would likely be vehemently speaking against the idea of voting or participating inside the system in any way. But I wanted to make sure you had a chance to get your thoughts out. You said you were trying to lead us somewhere, so go ahead there, Pizza Guy.
Well, I've called in favor of incrementalism before. And the principle behind incrementalism, as opposed to purism, is to say that, hey, we have to get from here to there. So how do we do that? Obviously, if I wanted to be the change I want to see, I wouldn't vote, because I don't think voting should be binding to anybody. What does it matter what two wolves and a sheep agree on? Voting inherently is violent and immoral. That's the stance Johnny Ray takes, and that's the stance I would assume you would naturally take as well, Ian.
No, why would I take why would I take the position that voting is violence? I think it's a ridiculous position backed up with no evidence whatsoever.
I agree that it's a ridiculous position, but that's because I'm an incrementalist. I believe that any step from here to there is harm reduction, and therefore we should encourage it. But you have to visualize where we are now, where we want to be, and what encourages steps from here to there. Right? And that's
By the way,
why
I can hear every mouse click that you make. I presume that's a mouse clicking in the background, just so you know.
Oh, geez, that's my wife across the room.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Really good microphone.
Sensitive microphone there. So, yeah, I mean, I think that it's ridiculous to call voting violence. Now, it's certainly true that someone could vote for a candidate who is a violence advocate, and then they would be backing someone who is advocating violence. But the act of voting itself, especially when casting a vote for a principled, liberty-oriented candidate who speaks against violence, is I don't see how you could argue at all that that's violence in any way.
So let's talk about it maybe in numbers so that we can kind of see where we're looking at. Let's call the status quo 100 violence. Okay.
100 violence, you said?
Yeah, let's just for a number, so we
Okay.
can have a number, so we can think about it reasonably, mathematically.
All right.
Let's say status quo is 100 violence. Everybody out there is 100 violence. Principled liberty is 0 violence, right? That's a Ron Paul, 0 violence. Okay. If you have the opportunity, there is no other candidate that your vote could matter for. You have the opportunity to vote for a 50 violence or a 25 violence. Will you vote for that one? If that person is elected, it will take the violence from 100, the status quo, down to 50. Would you vote for that?
Yeah, because I support harm reduction. I mean, I would probably have to hold my nose and do it, but I probably would do that simply because if fewer people are attacked during that person's reign, then that would be an improvement.
Daryl, Ellen?
Do I have the option for writing in none of the above in your little hypothetical, or do I live in Oklahoma to where the only choice is red team, blue team?
Well, no, and this is the real world, right? So you have to actually consider what your actions will take. You can
Okay,
vote-
and in the real world, there are some states that allow write-in votes and some states that don't. Oklahoma, Nevada, Louisiana, California, for most offices, do not allow write-in votes.
And right, he's talking about a ridiculous, what if scenario here, right? The idea that you would somehow know or be able to quantify how violent a particular candidate's viewpoints are, who's, one of the regular politicians, which of course they're lying to you. So that's why if it's just a regular Democrat versus a regular Republican, I'm not going to throw my weight usually in any way, shape, or form unless I somehow have some sort of idea that somebody in that race is liberty-oriented. If there's not a stark contrast between the candidates, I won't bother with it, or I'll do the write-in or something like that. Ellen, what about you?
Right. So I was thinking, very similar with you, where that, if somebody is less violent than what is currently, or the person that's currently in power, then of course I'm going to prefer that over the higher level of violence. Like any level that's lower than what is there is going to be an improvement. So if there's, a Republican and a Democrat fighting against each other for this one position, if they're very similar and, maybe I agree with the Republican slightly more than the Democrat, but still not enough to, win my vote over. I might prefer to not vote in that scenario where, there's only a marginal level of benefit that comes out of voting. But if there's somebody that's noticeably different and, you can very obviously tell that, you might not agree with them on certain things like abortion rights or, birth control or something like that, but in most other areas they're agreeable, I would prefer to have that instead of just not giving my opinion at all.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.